Okay, just a quick interjection here. I apologize for the audio on this. Unfortunately, I thought my microphone was working and it was not. So the audio is a bit sketchy. It goes up and down. Basically, it's the iPad default instead of using a regular microphone. Try to enjoy the video anyway, and here we go. In this video, I'm going to show you how to I'm going to try to replicate a brush that I made a year and a half ago. But first, I'm going to show you an update to my arch brushes. What I did was I took my layer 1, it's the reference, I added a layer, I selected inside, and then I said fill. I then inched up and down, on uniform. I inched up and down. To create a copy of the void that's solid and inside the void. And the result of that effort was this, which is very nice. Now, for these side pieces, it's important that you replicate the same one. So don't replicate this one and then replicate this one. You want to replicate this one twice. And that way, when you make the side piece, you go halfway this way and move the other one halfway this way. You can be certain that the two halves will actually match up. I did the same thing with the corners there. I used the same instance of the shape, went half to the left, half to the right, half up, half down. Always using the same instance of and just making copies of it. What I did for these brushes, I made them line brushes. To make them a line brush on the grain, you zoom to follow stroke. Under properties, you turn off the use stamp preview. And I pasted my image in here, and that gave us one brush. I then duplicated it in this one. In the duplicate, I went in, and if you tap with two fingers on the screen when you're in the edit, it will invert the colors. So I inverted the colors, and thus I was able to make an Arch 3 brush. And it's just that easy to make all sorts of variations on what you have. Now let's see if we can go ahead and replicate that older brush. We'll go square. Background we want to be black. Stylus we want to be white. We're going to go into the calligraphy monoline, and we want it at 30%. And then we're going to draw a circle. You don't have to draw a circle. By the time we're done with this, it ain't going to be a circle. To make a circle, as a reminder, you draw and hold, keep holding, and with your other forefinger, press on the screen and it snaps to a circle. You can edit it to make it larger, smaller, whatever. What we're going to do is duplicate that and move the duplicate all the way over here. we're going to take this one. This is going to be our important brush, or our important layer, and we're going to snap it to the edge of the first one. We're going to try to keep it from left to right, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and in layers up, down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so we can remember where the layers are. Let's make our life easier. We're going to make these at 50%. This will come in handy in a few minutes. Ignore the snapping to the center and make sure that it snaps to the shape. Duplicate that. And we're going to move it over here. Duplicate that. And move it over here. Duplicate that. We're going to move it over here. This is an awful lot to work with. I don't really want to work with more than 5 at most. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're going to delete this one. We're going to select all of these layers. And we're going to increase the size. Under uniform till it's about right there. And we don't want to do that just yet, do we? I'll explain in a few minutes. What we're now going to do is go to the top layer. We'll select in the middle, go down a layer, and we're going to erase all of this stuff. What we want that's important is that this circle right here needs to end at the inside edge of this circle. That will allow us to align things up as we go. So what we're going to do now is duplicate that circle and match it up with that circle, and then delete. Duplicate, match it up, and delete. Duplicate that one. Oops. Duplicate that one. Match it up. And delete. Duplicate. Match it. And delete. And this is our first stage for getting our lovely hill pictures here. We're now going to group all of these together. We're going to duplicate that group, and let's move them closer to the top. And over to the left, because that'll make our lives easier later. And we're going to move this down until its halfway mark matches up with the layer above it. You can see the blue line appear right there, and we're in the right place. Once again, this is the important one. I'm going to select and invert, and then I'm going to go to this second one here and delete or erase all the way up to our selected area. And then we're going to do the same thing with the third layer down here. We're going to select, invert, go up to our important one, it is, and erase up to there. And then we're going to do the exact same thing all over again. Duplicate, match, delete. And then we're going to do the same thing with the group. Duplicate it, match it down, and then delete the old one. And this gives us stage 1. For stage 2, we're going to take our important one and create a layer underneath. And we're going to create an ellipse that will go from here to here, somewhere in between these 2 points. Don't worry if it's not perfect to start out with. We edit the shape and we move it around until we have it about where we want. That looks good. And we're going to move that down to 50%. And we're going to make sure that it crosses into here perfectly. Well, crosses in here to what I think is perfectly anyway. And then, just like before, we're going to select the second layer one here, invert, and we'll go up to our little oval and do an erase. We'll select the third layer one down here, invert, go back up to our little oval and erase all the way up to here. And what this allows for is, you see how they match so perfectly. We can get these nice and even so that everything's going to work the way we want it to. Now we need to merge our 2 important layers together. Max out the opacity, merge them down, then go back to 50% on the opacity, and once again we do the duplicate move, delete. And we do the same thing with the layers going up and down. And we want to make sure that there's no little bumps left. That's definitely not where we want it to be. How does that look? No, it's still doubled. Tap up, tap up, there we go. And delete. And now we get to merge everything together. Max that out, max that out. We max out all the layers' opacities. and then we flatten. And we do the same thing up here. And then we merge these two layers down. This is now our new layer 1. Now we want to stretch this out left to right. So that it gets pretty close to the edge. And we're going to duplicate. Well, before we duplicate, let's move it down to 50%. There we go, duplicate. We're going to move this down. And the reason we waited to stretch this out until now is so that all of our lines would be a consistent thickness. Before then, our little arches would actually be thinner than the big arches. And I don't think we can get another one down here. Nope, see, it goes right over. So we're not going to worry about that. We're going to max out opacity on both of these layers and then merge them down. Now we create a new layer and we fill it and set its opacity for 50%. And the first thing we're going to do is match left to right because they're closer. We duplicate layer 2, duplicate layer 1, take the first layer 2 and layer 1, and we're going to move those over to the left until we are halfway through. The reason we have the layer 2 filling the entire screen is so that we get exactly half of the screen rather than just half of the image. And there we go. So we need these two to meet up now. Let's fill this layer 50%. We can just delete this layer for now. This is already at max. So we're going to take this one here on the left, which is at the top, layer 1, and we want to move it. Actually want to stretch it until it's halfway between this point and this point. So we go to freeform, and that allows us to stretch, and we'll go about halfway there, and then we'll take this right side layer 1 and we'll go all the other way. And once again, we don't want to go too far. We can set these to 50% to check our work. You can set it to 50% before you stretch them out so you can see real time whether or not it's working. And as you can see, it worked just fine. So now we have our pattern going left to right, and it works just wonderfully. Let's max these out and merge them together. And then we're going to once again duplicate layer 2, duplicate layer 1, take the top layer 2 and the top layer 1, and we're going to move up until we are halfway through. There it goes. And we'll do the same thing with the bottom layer 2 and the bottom layer 1. Move that down to half. And now we need to match these up. Probably should have kept an extra layer going across just to make this a little bit easier, but that's okay. Fill that layer, make it go half. We probably will not need this layer anymore. We're going to take the top layer one. We're still on freeform. We're going to go halfway. We'll take the bottom layer one, and we're going to go halfway. And now I'm going to check my work. Once again, you can set this to 50% to start out with if you want, so that you can check as you go. And I think that looks pretty good. Max out the opacity. And you'll notice that the ones at the top are taller than the ones at the bottom. And that's because we stretch the top more than we stretch the bottom. If we want to fix that, because the top layer is about 1/4 of what the bottom layer is, let's just stretch the top layer about 1/4 of the way down. Which would be right about there. And then we move this one up. And now they look more even. Max out the opacity. Merge them down. Copy that layer. I'm going to create a new layer and turn that one off. We're going to go to our pattern brushes. We're going to duplicate what for me is arch 3 line, which is the one that's inverted, remember. So whenever I go into the grain and do an edit, import, paste, I then have to make sure to do a 2-finger tap to invert it again. There you go. We say done. And this is Arch Hills 1. And let's test out Arch Hills 1. At its current setting, it's going to take a long time to fill that area. Let's increase the size. And there we go, a nice seamless pattern. We are now going to have lots of fun with this. I'm going to duplicate my layer 1, and I'm going to fill in all of the smaller arches. So I drag down here and fill that in. I'm going to say continue filling with recolor. Let's move that little crosshair there. And then everywhere we tap gets filled. And this, instead of doing a select everything and then fill or drag and drop to fill each individual, and then we can turn that off, and we will copy that and turn it off, and we're going to duplicate Arch Hills 1. This is going to be Arch Hills 2. And under grain, edit, import, paste. Give that a done. Let's go ahead and create that reset point. And then I'm going to duplicate this one. Go into the grain, Edit, two-finger tap to invert, say done, go to About This Brush, and this is Arch Hills 3. Create the reset point. So we have Arch Hills 1, which looks like this, Arch Hills 2, which looks like this, and Arch Hills 3, which is the inverse of Arch Hills 2. Three nice pattern brushes to have. I hope you enjoyed the update to my original arch, and I hope you enjoyed learning how to create this double arch pattern as well. Thank you very much for watching, and you have a wonderful day.